Good morning, everyone. Tina Spalding, Trance Channel here today for day 12 of our 40 days and 40 nights with Jesus. Let's see what he has to say to us this morning. You are blessed beings indeed. I am that one that you know as Jesus, and several of you are bumping up against this idea of sovereignty. Sovereignty is your natural state. Sovereignty is that which you are born with, which means that you are a free, creative being and that you are loving. When you have lost your sovereignty, what it means is you are seeking outside of yourself for guidance. You are not seeking within yourself for guidance. You are allowing others to rule you. You are allowing others to demand things from you. You are allowing others to determine what is good for you. You will always have some kind of resistance to an outside authority telling you what to do because it is your nature. You are a freedom-seeking being. So sovereignty is this. It is your knowing, and many of you are just developing this idea. It is your knowing when you are on track, and it is your knowing when you should not do something. So sovereignty means you are returning back to your natural state. And this, in that sense, these teachings are in that sense an unlearning of the great learning process that you have been through. To live in Western society required a lot of training. When you walk into a coffee shop and you behave in a certain way, you get in a line, you don't get too close to people, you don't move your body in certain ways. All of these things are trained into you. If you watch a little 18-month-old or a 2-year-old come in with their mother or father to the coffee shop, they'll be laying on the floor, lifting up their skirts, screaming, crying, all kinds of behaviors which are demonstrating their sovereignty. Now, in your society, you call it the terrible twos, because what's happening for the first time in that child's life, instead of being nursed and coddled and loved and given everything it needs whenever it wants it, now the training program starts. And so at 2 years old, you begin to say to children, you're not a baby anymore. You can't have whatever you want when you want it. And you start to get censoring looks from other parents as your child runs madly down the aisle holding on to something that they want to have. Now, when you're living in an urban environment, there does seem a necessity to train children to become less. And this urbanization process, this industrialization, and then the mass exodus of people from the country into the cities has been going on for a couple of 100 years. It's relatively recent in your evolutionary development, let us say. And so what you have inside of you is the information and the ability and the desire to be free. This is how you have evolved in let's say, indigenous communities before colonization. You had beings living in myriad of different ways, and these were all sort of experiments that individual micro cultures developed as a way to learn and grow and manage the environment and themselves and each other. What you have now is a mass indoctrination system to get you to fit into the cubicle of work that is going to benefit the system. And when you start to see teenagers acting out, what they're beginning to realize is that they are being shepherded towards a future that they don't want. And they are beginning to rebel, and they are beginning to medicate themselves with drugs and alcohol because they have nowhere else to go. So many of your societal problems are arising from this loss of freedom, and this reclamation of sovereignty that's happening now is because it is an evolutionary cycle in societies when ruling classes start to take too many freedoms away from humans, and this has happened before. When they start to take too many freedoms away from humans, the human spirit, which is powerful and is what drives your ability to live here on this planet. It is the vital life force within you. It begins to say, hang on a second here. Life is becoming so constrained that we are unable to experience the experiences we want to have, and the joys and the excitement and explorations that we want to have. And this is the point that your society has hit this year. Even for those who were pretty compliant, even for those who were okay with government school systems and vaccination programs, you are now starting to see even them rising up inside at this point, although it's spilling out onto the streets now. But what you are witnessing is a spiritual revolution, a grassroots revolution of the vital life force of you as spiritual beings beginning to say enough is enough. And that is what we want you to understand when you're looking at what's playing out on the screens of your media systems. They want to spin that story into something else, into racial prejudice, into all kinds of different things. As students of this work, we want you to understand that you're seeing people who are unable to contain their spirits in prison anymore, and they have had enough. Whether it be the prison of poverty, whether it be the prison of their apartment block in the city that they're not allowed to leave. So we would like you to look at the chaos that's beginning to erupt and that's going to continue on through the latter parts of this year and into early next year. Some of this is orchestrated in an effort to bring down certain systems. But as a spiritual student, we want you to rise above that and say, this is about the reclamation of our sovereignty. This is about the imposition of too many rules on spiritual beings who need to be free, relatively speaking, to be able to make choices and move through their incarnational experience with some sense of purpose. If everything is online and you're not allowed to leave your house and you have to wear a mask and you can't talk to your neighbors and you can't hug your grandmother, spirit begins to say revolution is necessary. Spirit begins to say, if we don't revolt, then we are going to leave, because we cannot evolve in this circumstance. So we want you to think about this today. We want you to think about your freedom, and we would like you to take a little bit of freedom today. If you are going to work and you're in a situation where you have controls on you, get out at lunchtime, take your mask off if you've had to wear one for work, and be free for an hour. If you're in a routine with children at home and doing homework and homeschooling is this new thing that you're battling with and trying to learn, call a halt at 11 a.m. and say, okay, kids, let's go to the park. Let's go and play. And if you can't go to a city park because of restrictions, go find a piece of woods close to you. And if you have no woods close to you, if you have no green spaces close to you, it's time to look at that. It's time to look at where you're living and how you're living and ask yourself, how is this going to work in the future? You must question your decisions, which 5 years ago may have made sense, but do they make sense now? Seek some piece of freedom today. If you do a routine job, as we mentioned yesterday, if you do a routine job that you do not want to do in the home, don't do it today. Go on strike, take some freedom, go for a walk, go for a swim. You begin now to enact your own revolution, redesigning your life in tiny baby steps towards that which you would like. Because if you don't do that and you are compliant with systems outside of you, whether it be the rules of your family or the rules of your spouse or the rules of your employer, you are adding to the imprisonment energy. And even though you may not be able to break free totally of what you have designed for yourself, you can begin to take baby steps towards a life that is more in alignment with your spirit, with your soul, and with your natural sovereignty. I am that one that you know as Jesus, and I will speak to you again later. It's a good one. Okay, thank you for joining me this morning, and I'll see you later tonight. Bye.